Hi friends, my name is Nandita. I am from Andhra Pradesh.
Good morning dear students. Today we are going to discuss about locomotion and movement from chapter 20 biology class 11 CBSE syllabus.
Children, let us discuss about sternum. The sternum or breastbone is a vertical bone that resembles a partial T shape. It forms the front of the rib cage and it is connected to the ribs by cartilage. It is a flat, narrow and elongated bone of chest. It is commonly called breastbone. It is absent in fish, ductile and associated with pectoral girdle in amphibian. In man, it is made up of cervical manubrium, mesosternum and xiphoids process, etc. Children, let us discuss the structure and anatomy of sternum. The structure of the sternum consists of the following three sternum parts, which first one is called manubrium. The first part of the sternum is the manubrium, which is the top part and includes your collarbone. At this, the topmost ribs connect and the bottom of the manubrium shares a border with the other parts of the sternum. At the bottom of it, your second set of ribs of your body also connects. Now let us discuss about second part of the sternum, which is also called body. The middle part of the sternum is also known as the body and it is the longest part. It connects with manubrium at the top and to the xiphoid process at the bottom. You have often heard with the word cartilage that is present in the part of the sternum, and here your third set of ribs to the seventh set connects with the help of cartilage. The xiphoid process, the bottom part of the sternum, is also known as xiphoid process. The shape of its part can differ from the individual to individual, and as your age increases, the xiphoid process of the sternum slowly begins to calcify. Now let us discuss the functions of sternum. One of the significant functions of the sternum is to protect lungs, blood vessels and heart from any kind of injury, and it's one of the longest and largest flat bones present in our body. There are two major types of functions of the sternum in our body, and those are as follows. First one is support. One of the most significant function of the sternum is providing support to the chest and the upper abdomen of our body. It provides support to the rib cage and collarbone of your body and many other parts of your skeletal system. Protection. The sternum is present in the center of your chest and there are many organs near this area such as the heart, lungs, blood vessels, etc. So it protects them from all kinds of injury. Children, let us discuss about ribs. In vertebrate anatomy, the rib cage is a bony structure made up of ribs, their connections to the sternums and the vertebral column. It makes up the thoracic and chest and protects the heart and lungs. The rib cage is made up of 24 ribs attached to the 12th thoracic vertebrae and the sternum. Each rib is joined to the thoracic vertebrae and the sternum by its joints and cartilage, allowing for slight movement while breathing and performing other tasks. Ribs are classified according to the connection to the sternum. True ribs articulate with the sternum, whereas false ribs do not. The 11th and 12th ribs, also known as floating ribs, and are considered false ribs because they do not connect to the sternum. Ribs are anatomically made up of a head with two articular facets, tubercle, a neck, a shaft, and a costal groove. The typical structure of a rib is divided into several components. The ribs are curved bars which movably articulated with the thoracic vertebrae at the back and with the sternum in front. All collectively form a bony cage, the thoracic basket. There are 12 pairs of ribs. Each rib is a thin flat bone connected dorsally to the vertebral column and ventrally to the sternum. It has two articulation faces on its dorsal and bicephalic. First 7 pairs of ribs which are attached to the thoracic vertebrae and ventrally connected to the sternum with the help of hyaline cartilage are called true ribs. The 8th, 9th and 10th pairs of ribs do not articulate directly with the sternum but join the 11th rib with the help of hyaline cartilage. These are called vertebrochondrial ribs. Last two pairs, 11th and 12th of ribs, are not connected ventrally and are therefore called floating ribs. Thoracic vertebrae, ribs and sternum together forms the rib cage. Children, ribs are classified into 3 categories based on the attachment to the breastbone. First one is true ribs, which is also called vertebrosternal ribs. These are the first 7 pairs of ribs attaching directly to the sternum with their own costal cartilages. Next one is false ribs, vertebrochondrial ribs. The following 3 pairs of ribs, 8th, 9th and 10th, are known as the false ribs because they do not directly attach it to the sternum. Instead of this, their costal cartilages are connected to the rib cartilage above. Floating ribs. The last 2 pairs of ribs, 11th and 12th, are termed floating ribs because their anterior ends are free and do not attach to the sternum or any other ribs. They are embedded in the muscles of the abdominal wall. Ribs are essential for respiration. During inhalation, the muscles between the ribs contract, pulling them up and down outward. This action expands the chest cavity, allowing the lungs to take in more air. Exhalation relaxes the muscles and returns the ribs and chest cavity to their resting position, allowing air to exit the lungs. Let us discuss the functions of ribs. The ribs perform several vital functions in the body. Protection. The ribs forms a protective enclosure around essential organs such as the heart and lungs, safeguarding them from the external harm. Respiration. The rib cage expands and contracts during breathing, aiding in lung expansion and air intake. Posture support. Ribs offer structural support for the spine, aiding in maintaining an upright posture and balance. Muscle attachment. Ribs act as point of attachment for muscle involving in breathing and movement of the trunk. Blood cell production. The ribs contain bone marrow where red and white blood cells are generated. Thermal generation. The rib cage helps regulate body temperature by assisting in the expansion and contraction of the lungs, which can impact heat exchange during breathing. The ribs protect the heart, large blood vessels and lungs. They bear respiratory muscles, external and internal intercostal muscles. The 2 pairs of ribs, 11th and 12th, protect the kidney. Children, let us discuss about appendicular skeleton. Appendicular skeleton is made up of girdles, pectoral and pelvic and limb bones, forelimb and hind limb. Pelvic and pectoral girdle supports hind limb and forelimb respectively. Each girdle is formed of 2 halves. The appendicular skeleton consists of 126 bones. Pectoral girdle. Shoulder bone or pectoral girdle. The shoulder bone is formed by the collarbone and the shoulder blade. It is attached to the upper part of the rib cage and to the upper arm bone. The shoulder blade is attached to backbone by muscles to allow the free movement of the shoulder. Pectoral girdle consists of 4 bones, 2 calvicles and 2 spiculae. The clavicle or collarbone is a slender S-shaped bone that articulates with the manubrium of the sternum. Scapula. Scapula is the large triangular flat bone situated in the dorsal part of the thoracic between the 2nd and 7th ribs. The dorsal flat triangular body of the scapula has slightly elevated ridge called the spine, which protects a flat expanded process called the acromion. Below the acromion is a depression called the glenoid cavity, which articulates with the head of the humerus to form the shoulder joint. The coracoid process is the knob-like inwardly bent fused scapula blade. Hip bone or pelvic girdle. The hip bone forms a large basin-shaped framework at the lower end of the backbone to which the legs are attached. The hip bone is also known as pelvic bone. It is made up of number of fused together by a fixed joints. The thigh bones of our legs are joined to the hip bone by ball and socket joints. And each coxal bone is formed by fusion of three bones like ilium, ischium and pubis. At the point of fusion of the above bones is a cavity called acetabulum to which the thigh bone articulates. Ilium is a short and straight bone forming the upper broadest part of the coxa and prominence. Ischium is a elongated bone running parallel to vertebral column. It forms the middle portion of the lower part of coxa. Pubis. Pubis is the smaller bone and forms anterior portion of the lower part of the coxa of hip. Obturator foramen is present as a large oval gap between the pubis and ischium. The foramen forms passage for nerves and blood vessels. The two halves of pelvic girdle meet ventrally to form the pubic symphysis containing fibrous cartilage. The pelvic girdle serves several important functions in the body. It supports the weight of the body from the vertebral column. It also protects and supports the lower organs including the urinary bladder and the reproductive organs and developing facts in a pregnant woman. The pelvic girdle differs between men and women. In man, the pelvis is more massive. In women, the pelvis is more delicate. This difference reflects the woman's role in pregnancy and delivery of the children. Limb bones. Limb bones are of two types. One is forelimb and second one is hind limb. Bones of hands and legs. The upper limb of human body, the shoulder to the hand, is called an arm. There are two arms in skeleton. The two arms are attached to the shoulder blade to the skeleton by ball and socket joints. Each arm consists of three parts: the upper arm, lower arm and a hand. The upper is the form shoulder to elbow. The upper arm consists of a single bone called humerus. The lower arm is a form of elbow to wrist. The lower arm is made up of two bones, radius and ulna. The upper arm bone connects to the lower arm bones by a hinge joint at the elbow. The hands consist of various small bones which forms wrist, palm and fingers. The bones of upper limb, forelimb or of man are the following: arm, branchium, humerus is one bone, forearm, antebranchium, radius plus ulna is two bones, wrist carpus, 4 plus 4 carpals and 8 bones, palm, metacarpals, 5 metacarpals or 5 bones, fingers, pharyngeal formula, 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, 14 bones. Total one hand consists of 30 bone. Children, let us discuss about bones of forelimb. Each forelimb consists of 30 bones. Humerus or ulna bone or bone of upper arm is the longest and largest bone of the upper limb. It articulates proximally with the scapula and distally at the elbow with two ulna and radius. Humerus is characterized by the presence of deltoid tuberosity for the attachment of muscles. Distal end of the humerus at the elbow joints is a like pulley and called trochleus. Its grooves is called olecranon fossa, whose basal part is marked by supratrochlear foramen for the passage of branchial artery and nerve. Humerus is characterized by the arterial foramen. Head of the humerus articulate with the glenoid cavity of pectoral girdle. Radius is present towards the thumb side and ulna is present towards the little finger side. Radius is small and ulna is larger. Styloid process is the present in distal end of the ulna and radius both. Olecranon process is present in ulna proximally, which forms prominence of elbow. Trochlear notch is formed by ulna, which is also known as sigmoid notch. Carpus or wrist bone are 8 in number, joined to one another by ligament. Carpals are arranged in 2 rows with 4 bones in each row. Metacarpals are in 5 in number and pharyngeals are 14. Already we discussed that. The lower limbs of the body on which person walks or stands are called legs. These are two legs in the human body. The two legs are attached to the hip bone of the skeleton by a ball and socket joints. Each leg consists of three parts: upper leg, lower leg, and foot. The upper leg is from hip to knee, and the upper leg consists of single bone called femur or thigh bone. Wrist is made up of carpals, palm is made up of metacarpals, and fingers are made up of phalanges. The lower leg is formed knee to ankle. The lower leg consists of two bones, tibia and fibula. The upper leg bone connects to lower bones with hinge joint. There is also a kneecap called patella. The foot consists of various small bones which from ankle, middle part of foot and toes. The ankle is made up of tarsals, foot is made up of metatarsals, toes are made up of phalanges. Children, let us discuss the bones of hind limb. Bones of lower limb or hind limb of a man are thigh bone, femur bone is 1, kneecap, patella is 1, leg, tibia and fibula are 2 bones, ankle 7 tarsals means 7 bones, sole 5 metatarsals 5 bones, phalanges formula 2, 3, 3, 3 is equal to 14 bones. Total 30 bones are present in leg. Femur is the largest, longest and strongest bone of the body. Fova capitis is depression in the head of femur. Femur is also known as bone of thigh. Greater trochanter, lesser trochanter, third trochanter are present in femur of thigh and buttock muscles. Patellar groove is found in distal end of femur. The patella forms kneecap. Patella is formed by sesamoid bone. Fibula is also example of sesamoid bone. Tibia is a larger and also called shin bone. It bears weight of the body. Fibula is a smaller and associated with knee joints. Tarsal bones are 7 and metatarsals are 5. Already we discussed that. Ankle bones have 7 tarsals and arranged in 2 rows. Children, let us discuss about joints. Joints are essential for all types of movements involving the bony part of the body. Joints are points of contact between bones or two bones and cartilage. Force generated by the muscles is used to carry out movement through joints, where the joints act as fulcrum. The movable as these joints vary depending on different factors. Joints have been classified into 3 major structural forms, namely fibrous, cartilaginous and synovial. The fibrous joints are immovable or fixed joints. These do not show any movement due to the presence of a strong and tough white cartilaginous fibers. Example, the joints in tooth sockets between the skull bones. Cartilaginous joints are slightly movable joints. In cartilaginous joints, the bones involved are joined together with the help of cartilages. The joint between the adjacent vertebrae in the vertebral column of this pattern. Synovial joints. The synovial joints, freely movable joints, are present perfect joints in which bones are not fused with each other. Synovial joints are characterized by the presence of a fluid filled with the synovial cavity between the articulating surface of two bones. Such an arrangement allows considerable movement of nutrients and respiratory gases. These joints help in locomotion and many other movements. The synovial joints are surrounded by the tubular articular capsule. The articular capsule consists of layers: outer fiber capsule and inner synovial membrane. The synovial membrane secretes synovial fluid which lubricates and provides nourishment to articular cartilage. In old age, stiffness of joints is due to the decrease in synovial fluid. Structural arrangement of a perfect joint permits considerable movement of articulating bones with danger of friction. Due to the elasticity of ligaments of the wall of joint corpuscle, articulating bone automatically return back to their normal position after movements. Synovial joints are further classified according to the movement they permit, like ball and socket joint, hinge joint which is also called a knee joint, pivotal joint which is present between atlas and axis and radius and ulna, gliding joint between the corpuscles, saddle joint between corpuscles and metacarpals of thumb, condyloid joint, wrist joint, and metacarpopharyngeal joints. First, ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint is present between humerus and pectoral girdle. And in this joint, the rounded end of one bone fits into the cavity, means which is hollow space of another bone. It permits movements in all directions. The joints between shoulder and the upper arm is an example of ball and socket joint. Similarly, the joint between the thigh and hip is an also example of ball and socket joint. Next, come to hinge joint. Hinge joint is present in knee joint. Hinge joints are found between the two or more than two bones where we need back and forth movement. This joint is similar to the hinges in a door. This joint allows movement only in one plane and only up to 1800. The knee joint and elbow joint are the examples of hinge joint. Pivot joint. This pivot joint allows for rotation, twisting, extension, and flexibility. This is the joint where our neck joints head and allow the movement of forward, backward, left and right direction. It is moreover like a cylindrical bone moving in a ring. Examples of these joints are head and arm. Gliding joint. Gliding joint is present in between the corpuscles and saddle joint present in between the carpal and metacarpal of the thumb. Movement in this joint happens due to sliding of bones over one another. Joints between the rings of backbone are examples of gliding joint. The twist joint is also an example of gliding joint. Children, let us discuss the disorders of muscular and skeletal system. Myasthenia gravis. In myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disorder. It affects neuromuscular junction leading to fatigue, weakening and paralysis of skeletal muscle. Muscular dystrophy. Muscular dystrophy is the progressive degeneration of skeletal muscle, mostly due to genetic disorder. Tetany. Tetany is a rapid spasm, means wild contractions in muscle due to low calcium in body fluid. Arthritis. Arthritis is a painful condition of the joints. It may be preceded or accompanied by a period of fatigue and feeling of stiffness. Osteoporosis is a hereditary disease characterized by decreased bone mass and increased chance of fractures. Decreased levels of estrogen is a common cause for this disease. Osteoporosis. Gout. Gout is the accumulation of uric acid crystals in the region of joints which results in painful movement. Sprain. Sprain refers to injury to a joint capsule typically involving a stretching or tearing of trends of ligaments. Unfortunately, both structures have much poorer generative power than bone and once stretched often remain weak. Sprain is often considered a minor disorder but it may become chronic. Fracture. Fracture is a break of a bone. Fracture occurs rarely in children. The bones of children have large quantity of organic matter and are therefore very flexible and less likely to break. With advancing age, mineral matter, calcium phosphate is deposited in the bones. This decreases the organic matter, making the bones hard and brittle. Those old people are more liable to fracture of bones. Children, let us discuss about summary. The movement is essential feature of all living beings. Protoplasmic streaming, ciliary movement, movements of fins, limbs, wings, etc. are some of exhibited by animals. A voluntary movement which causes the animals to change its place is called locomotion. Animals move generally in search of food, shelter, mate, breeding sound, better climate or to protect themselves. The cells of human body exhibit amoeboid, ciliary and muscular movements. Locomotion and many other movements require coordinated muscular activities. Three types of muscles are present in our body. Skeletal muscles are attached to skeletal elements. They appear straightened and voluntary in nature. Visceral muscles present in the inner wall of visceral organs are non-striated and involuntary. Cardiac muscles are the muscles of the heart. They are striated, branched, and involuntary. Muscles possess excitability, contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Muscles fiber is the anatomical unit of muscle. Each muscle fiber has many parallel arranged myofibrils. Each myofibrils contains many serial arranged units called sarcomere, which is the functional unit. Each sarcomere has a central A band made of thick myosin filaments and two half I bands made a thin actin filaments on either side of it marked by Z lines. Actin and myosin are polymerized proteins with contractility. These active sites for myosin on resting actin filaments are masked by a protein tropin. Myosin head contains ATPase and has ATP binding sites and active sites for acting. A protein neuron carries signal to the muscle fiber which generates an action potential in it. This causes the release of Ca++ from sarcoplasmic reticulum. The Ca++ actin which binds to the myosin head to form a cross bridge. This cross bridge pulls the actin filaments, causing them to slide over the myosin filaments and thereby causing contraction. Ca++ are then returned to the sarcoplasmic reticulum which inactive the actin. The cross bridge are broken and the muscles relax. The repeated stimulation of muscles leading to fatigue. Muscles are classified as red and white fibers based primarily on the amount of red colored myoglobin pigment in them. Bones and cartilage consist of a skeletal system. The skeletal system is divisible into axial and appendicular. The skull, vertebral column, ribs and sternum constitute the axial skeleton. The limb bones and girdles forms the appendicular skeleton. Three types of joints are formed between the bones or between bones and cartilage: fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial. Synovial joints allows considerable movement and therefore play a significant role in locomotion. Thank you.